Hey everybody, Austin back again with another long play video. This time, as you can see, it's going to be Super Mario Bros. 3 for the 8-bit NES. Now, I want to actually start this off with sort of a disclaimer, and that is going to be, as you can sort of tell by the video length, this is not going to be a full run, so to say, of Super Mario Bros. 3. I thought about doing an absolute full run, going through every single stage in the game, but, you know, I really wasn't up to spending 2 to 4 hours in a single session trying to do this long play video. So what I'm going to do, or is at least what I've done already, is I've completed the game pretty much how I would as a kid. And as a kid, I had the strategy guide to Super Mario Bros. 3, I knew where all the secrets were and where all the goodies were, and I would use the warp whistles a lot, just as pretty much most of my friends did back in the day. So, what this is a full run to Super Mario Bros. 3 using the warp zone trick from start to finish. So, this half an hour plus or minus a little bit session is me running through the game with the warp whistles. So, basically what happens is I complete World 1, as I've actually already started playing, and then after I complete that, I pretty much skip straight to World 8, because that's how the warp whistles work if you use them in the right manner. And I'll sort of explain that as this video progresses. So here we are, already playing the game, Super Mario Bros. 3. This game is an absolute classic. I mean, it's, even if you don't like Mario, I don't really think there's any denying it. I mean, just look at the game. It's just big sprites, you know, cool animation, nice, you know, location varieties. The game is just still great. I actually had a blast doing this video. I hadn't played this game in a long time, especially not on an actual NES. And unlike a lot of my videos these days, this is actually using a real cartridge versus using a flash card. I usually like to just keep my flash card in my NES and just swap between games. But this is an actual Super Mario Bros. 3 cartridge that we're playing on. I have a complete in-box copy in pretty nice condition, and it's definitely one that's not leaving my collection. Super Mario Bros. 3 is a game that I definitely have a lot of nostalgia for. When I was probably, I guess this game came out in '89 or so, or something like that. You know, I was probably about 7 years old when this game came out, and this was one of those games that my friends, as well as myself, completely obsessed over as kids, and it was one of those first games I just ran into the ground as far as just playing it non-stop for really years upon years. Absolutely loved this game. So it was really, really fun revisiting it. I hadn't revisited it on an NES in a while. So here is the one-up trick. It's really good to have the raccoon suit. And there's actually multiple spots in this stage you can do this on, which is great. And I think I rack up about 27 or 30-ish lives or so here. Not on this specific part, but the next one as well. I'm actually, when I was playing, I was having a slight problem with my A button on the controller. It seemed like it wasn't registering some of the times, which is why I missed that last section just prior to this. It's like it wasn't registering some of the taps, and normally what you can do is when you have the raccoon suit, you can just keep mashing the A button, and, you know, the tail can only flap so fast, so Mario will only go down so fast. Like, when he's going down nice and smooth, you're doing it correctly, but if he sort of like, I don't know, pushes down really fast, kind of like in a jerky manner, that means that you didn't flap correctly or something like that. It's kind of weird. But if you have a nice working controller, just constantly mashing the button will work. And I tried to get one last hit in there, which did not work, but it doesn't really matter. I just wanted to have a bunch of lives, just in case. Like, I was pretty confident I could get to the end without really any problems, because, again, I played the hell out of this game as a kid, and this is one of those NES games where most of it is just, especially these early stages, is pretty much etched into my memory, like I don't know, I just, I don't even really have to practice it. It's one of those few NES games I don't even really have to warm up on before I start playing, so the motions are there, the muscle memory is there. And the star went down the hole just as always. You kind of want to hit that block from down below if you can. And there we go, we're already through stage 2. Super Mario Bros. 3, while it was really sort of cutting edge as far as NES games were concerned at the time, looking back at it in hindsight, The levels are actually really short compared to other Mario games like Super Mario World. Which isn't a bad thing, because when you think about it, this game has 8 worlds with a ton of stages and secret levels and all sorts of stuff. There's still a absolute ton of content for, considering it's an 8-bit NES platformer. I mean, literally, this game will probably take you 2 to 3, maybe 4 hours, depending on how fast you go through the game, to get through. And that's assuming that you're actually familiar with the stages, you won't die a lot, you won't have to continue or anything like that. It is really a beast of a game when it comes to these classic platformers. And yeah, it's just, despite the short stages, it's still a long game. So here is where we're going to get our first warp whistle. These white blocks, if you hold down on them, after a few seconds, Mario will actually shift into the background, which I've done here. You have to make sure you don't touch any enemies. Even though you're on the back plane, you will still get hurt by enemies that are on the front plane. So you have to worry about that, which is why I hopped over that Koopa Troopa. So there we go, we've got our first warp whistle. And if I had failed on that, I would have had to kill myself because... well, actually, no, I wouldn't have had to kill myself. I could have just gone back and done it again. Okay, never mind. But ignore that. So the second warp whistle is famously in the first castle. Now, for those of you that kind of grew up in the late 80s and the early 90s like I did, the first time many of us kids got a taste of Super Mario Bros. 3 was on the movie The Wizard. And pretty much every kid I knew back then had seen that movie, and they saw the ending, and which famously pretty much debuted Super Mario Bros. 3 in North America. Pretty much right in the very beginning of the movie, I'm sorry, in the I can't even talk. Pretty much, you know, the most famous part of that scene in the movie was when the kid goes to the castle and just miraculously finds the warp whistle, and he like skips ahead of his competition. He's in like some major championship or something, and so that's how most kids that I knew anyway found out about the first warp whistle. And technically not the first, because as you saw, we have already gotten one warp whistle, but in our case it's going to be the second warp whistle. But back when we were young, it was the only warp whistle we knew of at that point in time. So we're going to be grabbing that next after going through possibly a bonus stage. Yeah, we've got the spade. And the spade is pretty much pictures that scroll back and forth, and you have to press the button at the right time to line them up properly. If you line them up properly, depending on the picture, if it's either the mushroom, the fire flower, or the star, you'll get a certain amount of extra lives. Like, I think the mushroom is like 1 up. I want to say the fire flower is 3 up. And then the star, I believe, is 5 up. You always want to go for the stars in this game if you're going for extra lives on that. So in this part, here's what happened in the wizard. You pretty much just fly up here. Run all the way to the right, then tap up. There's actually a door there you have to tap up. I think you have to tap up. And then you'll be taken there to the warp whistle. Now, you don't want to use your warp whistles on the World 1. How the warp whistles work is you want to use them on World 2 starting. This is at least if you want to skip to World 8. If you want to skip to a different world, it doesn't really matter. Like, so, yeah, it's really all up to you. However, if you use a warp whistle while you're on World 1, basically what happens is there's 3 sort of island paths to very specific worlds in the game. The top path is Worlds 1, 2, and 3, I believe. The second path is Worlds 4, 5, and 6. And then the third path is Worlds 7 and 8. I think that's how it works. And we'll find out in just a moment after I beat this first world. So if you use the warp whistle on World 1, you're going to be shot to the top path, which... you can either replay World 1 again if you want, or go to Worlds 2, 3, and 4. Wait, actually, I don't think it gives you an option to play World 1 again. But, yeah, whatever. So basically, you're going to waste the warp whistle. So, if you want to try to skip to World 8, you have to wait until you beat the first world, and then you use the whistles, and then you can skip straight to World 8, as long as you have 2 whistles. So here's the card flipping game. There's actually... That's not a randomized game. There's actually 3 specific boards. I think it's 3. Maybe there's 4. 3 specific boards or so, plus or minus, of card patterns. And depending on which one you have, the cards, the items there will always be in the same spot. So you can kind of memorize the patterns. And when I was a kid, I had the strategy guide to the game, and it disclosed the exact patterns for the multiple amounts of boards that there were. So, I actually, funny enough, recently saw a complaint about this game. Someone on Nintendo Age had posted a thread about how they despise Super Mario Bros. 3. And it's obviously to each their own, but I don't know if they really know how the game works. For instance, one of their complaints was that card flipping game, and they despised like how it was implemented poorly, but I don't really understand how it's implemented poorly. It's a little bit of a memorization game. It's, the more you do it, the more you figure out, oh, hey, these don't change, you know? Or there's a set amount of boards that always stay the same. So, once you figure out all those boards, you can pretty much nail every single flip on those special stages, which is really cool. Now again, I had the strategy guide to the game, and the main reason I had that is because I had a Nintendo Power subscription at the time. And if you're trailing off now, if you're not familiar with Nintendo Power from the time, strategy guides for 8-bit NES games, or specific strategy guides anyway, were through this Nintendo Power subscription. So if you're subscribed through Nintendo Power, you would get strategy guides to specific games automatically. One of them was Final Fantasy, one of them was Super Mario Bros. 3, one of them was Ninja Gaiden 2, etc., etc. So I had the strategy guide to this game, and again, like I said, they had pretty much, it was an amazing strategy guide, pretty much detailed every single little secret in the game, and you know, including the special stages, you know, to rack up extra lives and so forth. So when I was a kid, you know, we would just play, or myself and my friends, we would just play with the strategy guide in hand. And if we got stuck, or hell, not even if we got stuck, we would just look at the strategy guide anyway and just see what came up next. And, you know, it was literally our tool, our companion through our journey of playing Mario 3. And so memories of Super Mario Bros. 3 for me, it's hard to reminisce about the game without also sort of reminiscing about the strategy guide as well. Simply because my strategy guide was always in my hand when I was playing this game. And, you know, aside from the first Final Fantasy, that was one of the few games I ever really used a strategy guide on. Doom on Super Nintendo was another one when I got that game. And, so, yeah. Good memory, good strategy guide memories for me. So that's the P-Wing. We got a free item, and the P-Wing I'll be using on World 8. So now we're on World 2, and we're going to go ahead and use the warp whistles and skip through to the end of the game. So now as you can see, multiple islands. Yeah, the top one only lets you do 2, 3, and 4. You cannot go back to World 1. So I skipped to World 7. I don't remember if you have to skip to World 7. I think you might have to. If you use the warp whistle on 5 and 6, it might take you back to that middle one. So now we're basically in the final stretch of the game already. Well, not really. We're only about halfway through the video, not quite. So a good chunk of this video is World 8, as you could see. There are quite a few stages in World 8. I mean, again, Mario 3, it's a pretty lengthy game, considering we just started on World 8 and there's about 20 minutes or so left to go. You know, each world could be a nice chunk of time, especially some other worlds that have more stages in them, like World 7, I think, is a pretty big one, with some pretty tricky stages too. So, Bowser's World pretty much is consisted of a lot of these sort of battleship and sort of tank segments, and one of them is an airship scene which flies by really, really fast, and we're going to actually use the P-Wing on that section, which is, again, what I did a lot as a kid. There's going to be one where we're on a boat, and there's actually going to be a trick there that I'm going to use, where you can sort of just swim underneath the boat and pretty much just skip the entire stage. It's a little tricky, but it's totally doable. Not that hard. And there might even be another one of these stages. I don't remember. I guess we'll find out as we progress through this video. There's going to be a castle, which actually kind of threw me off a little bit. My memory was actually starting to sort of fade on me as I got to this point, because again, I hadn't beaten this game in quite some time. So the last time I think I beat this game was on the Mario All-Stars collection for the Wii. And back then I actually just went through every stage in the game because it has save functionality and whatnot. I could play a few stages and save it and then start back later. And that was at least 3 years ago or so. And before that, I hadn't beaten this game in a very long time, probably 7, 8, or 9 years or so. So, alright, now this is the stage I was just mentioning where you can sort of just swim underneath the boats, and it doesn't look like it's possible, but it's actually totally possible. And actually the first one, the first attempt I die at, I have to admit it's actually a little bit more difficult doing it with Big Mario than it is Small Mario, it seems. So either that or I just got my timing off. So what you do is you just sort of go down and die, just like that. Not really, you're supposed to actually just continue swimming, but for some reason I guess I just went down too far and I died. So but I want to say it's easier with Small Mario, and because his hitbox isn't nearly as big, it's easier to go through certain nooks and crannies and skid along the bottom of a moving boat. So now obviously you don't have to do this. You could try to actually play the level as it was meant to be played. But these stages could be pretty tricky depending on your skill level. I mean, for me, I don't think I'd have too much of a problem. But there's definitely more commotion above, as you could see, you know, the typical cannon shots, and then the guys coming out and throwing their wrenches at you. Completely forgot their names. I used to know their names. So, you can see there's a lot of wrenches being thrown. Of course, you would be hopping on them as you play through the top portion. So there would actually theoretically be less wrenches on screen because you've destroyed the enemies. But still, you gotta watch out for those cannons, especially those big ones. They fire up pretty quick. So, and those 3 cannons, that could be a little tricky for some people. I mean, really, you just want to wait until the cannons shoot and then hop on the cannonballs, because you can. And that's, you know, typical Super Mario Brothers, at least these days. So now, when I was doing this part, I was actually kind of on the edge of my seat, because I was like, oh damn, I don't want to die, because there really aren't any checkpoints in this. When you die, you always start back off at the beginning of the stage, so I would have had to do the whole underwater section again, which I had already died at once, and the whole time I was doing it, I was like, oh please, I hope this button doesn't fail me like it did earlier when I was, you know, doing the one-up trick on stage 2. So, stage, World 1-2. So, you know, it's Super Mario Bros. 3, it's really not that hard of a game. I mean, maybe I'm going to say that just because I played the game so much as a kid. But, you know, really, going back through it again, it didn't really seem that much more difficult than I remembered it being. It just, I didn't really have any problems. If you're kind of new to the Super Mario Bros. Series and you think some things are kind of difficult, just I don't know, slow down when you play, maybe. I mean, depends on your playstyle, obviously, but the few people I have run into that have had problems with Mario games, I don't know, just this is the kind of game where you can sort of just go stop and go, just kind of watch what's around you and then just base your actions around that. It's not that chaotic at all, really. So I think pretty much anyone should be able to get through these games. Although this section could be kind of tough because the platforms are moving fast, so that is definitely a greater challenge than probably most of the game. But that's why we had the P-Wing, and we just fly over everything. Another fun little sort of cheat or shortcut, so to say, is you get a variety of P-Wings throughout the course of the game, and you can use them in manners like this. There are also certain stages where vertical elements are, or at least hidden vertical elements. You can fly up to the second portion of the sky, There's secrets hidden in the sky, and having P-wings like this can definitely help. One of the upcoming stages, I actually use just a raccoon tail. And with the raccoon tail, when you run up and you get enough momentum, your run meter powers up and the P starts flashing. And you hear that little chime that you've heard for this whole stage. And you'll be able to fly for just a short period of time. And then you'll be forced back to the ground. With the P-wing, though, your power meter is always at the top. So that sound is constantly going, as you can hear still. And, you know, you could just fly infinitely until the stage is over. And then you're just forced back to having a regular raccoon suit. So now this is the actual World 1, apparently, on this, on this stage. And here's the first secret on this level. If you build up enough momentum on that part, you can fly up here, get a bunch of extra lives. And just remember that if you try to build momentum and your meter doesn't go up all the way, but you get stopped, you can actually immediately run in the other direction, and you'll be able to build up slightly more momentum. And if you do that a few times, you'll eventually be able to build your meter completely. You got to be kind of on point about it, though. So it's funny that last section used to give me a lot of trouble when I was a kid, but now it's just like, okay. I just sort of blaze right through it, no problems at all. It's probably from having played a lot of Super Mario 3D World, which is admittedly a slightly more difficult game, I think, at least later on in the game. That game has some real pain in the ass final stages, and secret level stages. Although, also admittedly, the most of the game was pretty much a cakewalk as well, but so that, as you saw, was another secret. There's so many secrets in this game, I mean, which makes it such a fun game to revisit, and such a fun game to sort of discover, and that was crazy. I was not expecting that to happen when I was playing. The music blocks in this one, if you press the jump button at the right time, they'll propel you really high into the air. But what happened is I landed on it and the Koopa Troopa at the same time, and it registered the Koopa Troopa hit as opposed to the music block hit. So much like in Super Mario Bros. 2, you can keep jumping up inside the quicksand, and you'll eventually be able to rise back to the top if you want to. Although it's not really that necessary in this game, or at least in this run, so to say. World 2 is a desert world, so you do have a lot of quicksand and stuff like that in that world in particular. So. And I'm going to go ahead and just hop on the Koopa Troopa. And whereas normal enemies, you can just hold down the A button and you'll just get propelled up as high as you can. On the music blocks, you have to actually tap and hold the A button at the right time. Otherwise, you won't get propelled up high. So that's something to be aware of if you're not familiar with those. We got a little item row there. You can store items in this. I think you get up to 3 rows worth of items, or is it just 2? I don't remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm gonna say 3, but it might just actually very well be 2. So yeah, this is a castle. I think I die actually a couple times here. You know, I try to remember the pattern. Some of these castles are a little tricky, especially this one. A lot of doors to go through, and it could get confusing pretty quickly. And so I hadn't done this castle in a very long time, as far as I remember. And you know, normally I like to have the raccoon tail, I believe, and just smash through those blocks and continue on that way. But yeah, and I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm like, am I doing it right, or that is a good room to know, because this block right here can technically be your first power-up if you die and you're still Small Mario. And then that next room I was just in can be your Fire Flower, which is great to have. So now we got some conveyor belts, and I wasn't really paying attention to these, and I just happened to land on the conveyor belt that was going a way that I didn't think it was going, and I just fall straight into the lava. Lava in this game will kill you in one hit, unlike some other Mario games where sometimes you'll touch lava and you'll just get propelled up. and lose a little bit of life. So this is where I die right here. I land on this one. Oops. And I almost make the same mistake a second time, and but I catch myself before falling off the edge. So we'll do this again. I think I get it the second time. I don't think I die a second time. So I did actually do this gameplay session just yesterday. Wait, not even just yesterday. It was just earlier today. It feels like yesterday because I took a nap and I went to sleep, and so this feels like a new day, even though it's actually still the same day. Just later on at night. So, progressing on to the right, going back to where we were before. And having the raccoon suit definitely makes life a lot easier, because again, you can keep tapping that A button and you'll sort of just float down to the ground. And that gives you a lot more time to maneuver and dodge hazards and, you know, position yourself on the platforms below and so forth. So again, this part I was just like, oh geez, I hope I'm doing the right thing. Like, I vaguely remember this part, and so I just keep running over to the right, get that, I remember doing that, and it turned out this was correct. There's going to be a hidden door over here to the right. You want to go to the one at the far right. So, I'm glad I got that kind of on my second try. One of the frustrating things about Super Mario Bros. Games, especially Part 3 and Super Mario Bros. World, or Super Mario World, and actually New Super Mario Bros. And New Super Mario Bros. U, the castles and the ghost houses can be, not really the castles in those newer ones, but the ghost houses can be frustrating. So, now there actually weren't any ghost houses in Super Mario Bros. 3, but I believe the boos, the boos came into existence through this game though. And note to self, don't hold the B button down when you end up outside of a pipe, because if you hold the B button down, your item tray comes up automatically. And what happened is that I accidentally used some items because I didn't realize because I held the B button down, the item tray had come up. I didn't even notice it. And so what happens is I end up using a couple power-ups totally by accident, which doesn't really matter. I don't really need the power-ups at this point, but it's sort of a kick in the balls when you use a power-up you didn't really intend to use. Especially if you're on another world in the game, you're having problems, you really need those power-ups sometimes to make life easier. But again, like I said, if you just take your time, you should be fine. Like, if you notice when I'm playing here, I just kind of sit in place for a few moments. I don't just rush around. It's like, wait, let the screen scroll over, wait, and then jump. You know, move and jump. It's like, wait to see what comes out, and then base your actions around what's already out on the screen. So, we're on a stage that basically just features a scrolling screen, relatively slow, a few cannons, and a few guys that throw wrenches at you. So, wait for the cannons to fire, figure out their pattern, and then go through the section. So I kind of, a way to imagine it is just go through the stage in blocks, so to say. So it's just like, okay, duck. Okay, don't need to duck, just jump up. It's just like, wait and react, wait and react, wait and react. Just wait. There, we're at the end already. Not that hard. So, anyone having trouble with this game can probably go by that for the majority of the game, and you should be able to get through the game, you know, as long as you have, you know, slightly moderate eye-hand coordination skills. I do know a few people, surprisingly, and this has always blown me away, that can't beat a Super Mario Bros. Game, any of them, which was, it just seems so crazy to me. Like, when I beat my first Super Mario Bros. Game, it was in kindergarten. I was like 5 years old when I beat Super Mario Bros. 1. And that's not to brag or anything. It's just that, I don't know, I've just been completing these games my whole life. So when I hear someone that hasn't, I'm just like, huh? But here's another trick up here. And actually, I don't remember if I did that as a kid. But I definitely remember seeing a video doing that. And I think that's actually kind of what sparked my memory to do that. So here we go. We're actually towards the end. You want to go down here and then go down to the right. Watch out for that guy. That was close. Go down to the right, and we're getting very close. Soon we're going to see Bowser fireballs, just like in the first Super Mario Brothers, which, back when this game came out, was a really nice throwback to that game. Because, yeah, Super Mario Brothers 2, well, awesome. I love that game, and that's actually going to be my next spoiler alert. Long play, Super Mario Brothers 2 as well, using the warp zones. It was a little bit different, naturally. So, you didn't really have a lot of elements that were found in the first Super Mario Brothers. So, like Bowser's Fireballs, or Bowser. So, here we are, the final boss in the game. Basically what happens is Bowser has to smash his way down. And I want to say that if you have the Fire Flower, you can actually just pummel him with fireballs and kill him that way as well. So, that was always something I liked about the Mario games is... the big bosses you had a tendency to be able to beat in multiple ways, which I thought was cool. So after he fires a fireball or two, you'll sort of jump to where you are in the screen. So as you can see, I positioned myself on the very specific portion of the screen. So it basically takes him 3 layers to fall down, and or basically cut through and fall down, and then you beat the game. So... that was kind of cute for us younger folks that actually grew up with the original Super Mario Brothers, because after every castle you got that saying, sorry, but the princess is in another castle. So, because technically you were saving Toad people, whatever you wanted to call them, and in every world except World 8, where you actually saved the princess. So, when you beat that game, when you beat this game and you saw that message for the first time, you were like, oh no, really? But, there's the Oceanside world. That was a really fun world. World 4, Big Island. That's probably my favorite world in the game. Everything is huge. Very, very cool. You got the Sky World, which was a little more of a pain, if I recall correctly. There was this really big tower that you had to go through, which was also kind of difficult. Iced Island, that was, or Iceland, that was tough as well. You can get the Hammer Brothers suit there, though. World 7 Pipe Maze was also a tricky one, some tricky level design. I mean, this game is, it's pretty massive for an 8-bit NES platformer. So, if you haven't played this game, I definitely recommend you give it a try. I mean, I think the game still holds up amazingly. It's still a phenomenal platformer. And I don't want to sound like I'm just saying that because I have fond memories as a kid, but just everything about the game just ties together very well to make really a masterpiece of a platformer. I mean, even just like the cartoonish graphics, it's really a beautiful looking NES game. There's just so much detail to be found in this game, and it's definitely sort of the epitome of what NES games could be when a lot of time and effort and polish was put into them. So, anyway, guys, I'm not gonna bore your ears off any longer. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. Like I mentioned previously, just a few minutes ago, I actually do have another long play coming up, and it is for Super Mario Bros. 2 on the NES. And much like my Mario 3 long play here, I will also be doing the Warp Zone trick in that game. So if you want to see sort of a short and sweet playthrough of that, definitely stay tuned and watch out for that very shortly, probably in the next week or so. So with that, guys, I'm out. Again, thanks for watching. I'll be back very soon. So until then, take care.